From the Hetchinger report. Stupid article time. The opinion is the Supreme Court just revealed what we already knew. Meritocracy is a myth. Well, that comes as shocking news to me. I thought meritocracy was real. I thought that, people have strengths and weaknesses, and merits that we hire people based on their strengths or weaknesses is a real thing. But apparently meritocracy is a myth. Okay. I look forward to learning how meritocracy is a myth from the Hetchinger report. Let's get started with this stupid. Less than a month after the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King, Harvard's administration dean announced the university's commitment to enrolling a higher number of Black students than in the past. Wow, I love the way we're starting this right away. The assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King. Okay, we are definitely starting this article in a way to get attention. My attention is piqued, sir. Soon, other Ivy League universities such as Yale, Princeton, and Columbia increased efforts to enroll Black students, and the era of affirmative action was born. Yeah, that was really dumb, especially because Martin Luther King himself said we should judge people on the content of their character rather than the color of her skin. And then he died. And then you're like, how about the exact opposite of that, though? Institutions were finally beginning to address historical exclusion of degree aspiring students based on race or ethnicity. Maybe just stop doing that would have been fine, but okay. Obtaining a college degree has tremendous transformative power. It has far-reaching ripple effects with power to uplift individuals, families, and communities. It remains the most reliably consistent path to economic and social mobility. Everyone who is dying on the end of their student loans would like to have a word with you. Now that the Supreme Court has decided that colleges and universities can no longer take race into consideration because that literally is racism, you are literally advancing someone because of race. So you're literally prejudicing because of race, literal definition of racism. So, no, not so much with the racism. We are witnessing the destruction of a 55-year effort to grant Black and brown students access to the upward mobility road. So we've been doing this for 3 generations at this point, and there is no end in sight. So doesn't that sort of tell you something? With the gutting of affirmative action, stepping up allyship for Black and brown students as they strive to get in and through college is more urgent than effort. It starts with dismantling the myths about affirmative action. Well, the only myth that I really believe in is that affirmative action is literally prejudice on the basis of race. It is literally giving someone an advantage and implicitly other races a disadvantage based on race, which seems pretty racist to me. But what do I know? The first prevalent myth is that affirmative action required colleges to admit a certain number of students of color. In fact, affirmative action was not based on quotas. Yes, it was, until they outruled it, until they made it illegal in Bakke. But affirmative action was absolutely based on quotas. So if we're talking about the entire history of affirmative action, which, by the way, you are, because you've talked about this 55-year history. So, you don't get to ignore it because, yes, affirmative action absolutely was based on quotas until Bakke. And they're like, how about not so much quotas? So yes, Bakke has been illegal for 20 years, but, for 35 years of that history, it was totally legal. So actually the history of affirmative action is majoritarily quotas. So not so much a myth as basically the first half of the entire experiment. For most colleges, using race and ethnicity data was crucial to the process of shaping their incoming class to foster a rich landscape of ideas, which presumes, incidentally, that certain races come to colleges with certain ideas, which is also pretty racist, right? If the idea is intellectual diversity, if the idea is diversity of opinion, using race presupposes that certain races have certain ideas, which is pretty racist. Why not just ask people what their ideas are? Why not just ask them what they believe in? Why not ask them what their thoughts are if you want ideological diversity? Using race as a proxy for ideological diversity seems pretty racist to me. And reflecting America's diversity of background and experience, which presupposes different people of different races have those backgrounds and experiences, which also seems pretty racist. If you're interested in diversity of ideas, if you're interested in diversity of background, if you're interested in diversity of experience, why not just ask those questions? And then you'll get it. Why are you assuming that certain races have certain ideas, certain backgrounds, and certain experiences? Isn't that pretty racist? I think it's pretty racist. Disallowing this practice will make it much more difficult, if not impossible, to do so. Why? Why would it make it difficult or impossible? Why not just simply ask? Why not simply ask and admit those people that bring those things to the table, regardless of race? Why is race a proxy for any of these things? Why is race a proxy for ideas, diversity, and or experience? Isn't that pretty racist that you're making those assumptions? Yeah. Another myth is that the use of race and ethnicity as a consideration in admissions flooded colleges with increasing number of Black students who took the place of applicants who were more highly qualified. That's correct. That happened. Yes, that is the nature of thing. By giving Black people or anyone an advantage, you necessarily excluded others. So yes, that happened. This false perception is contradicted by the data, is it? Despite the widespread practice of race and ethnicity administrations, Black student enrollment was down 22% in the decade from 2010 to 2022, and recent data shows it's fallen another 7% since that time. So, but that doesn't really do anything to dissuade the thing. The fact that Black student enrollment is down does nothing to say that you aren't trying to skew the scales for Black people, which you totally are. So is enrollment down? I don't know, but you're trying to get those people into those slots. So yeah. After nearly 25 years in education, I see the problem right there. I found it's far more likely that highly qualified students, even a student of color, will be displaced by less qualified students benefiting from legacy admissions, financial institutions, or institutional priorities than by affirmative action, which, by the way, I have no particular problem with that conclusion. I think that legacy admissions are probably some bullshit, because that seems some bullshit. Why aren't we bringing people based on merit? Why does my daddy, though, have really much to do with anything of whether we should admit these students? So, if you want to get rid of legacy admissions, then, cool. I'm down for that. That seems to be a huge, huge factor of these admissions. And then, we would have people that actually bring merit to the table instead of their father was important, though. Their father being important should not be a factor either for or against them. We should not discriminate against them because their daddy's important. So if they are good in their own right, the fact their daddy was also good in their own right should not be used against them, right? And also shouldn't be used for them. How about it's just an irrelevant factor and you strive or survive based on your own merit? Wow. So yeah, you want to get rid of legacy admissions? That's cool. Colorado apparently has already gotten rid of legacy admissions statewide. I think the University of Southern California has gotten rid of legacy admissions. So get rid of legacy admissions. That sounds good. I'm all about that. The third and most insidious misconception impacting public opinion is the myth of meritocracy. Oh, please tell me why meritocracy is a myth, right? I agree with you that legacy is not meritocracy. So I agree with you that legacy is some bullshit when meritocracy should be the goal. But meritocracy itself is a myth. Please inform me why. Opponents of affirmative action assert that college admissions should be meritocracy. Basically, those with the highest GPAs and test scores and the most impressive states should win admission on merit. That's basically my view. Yes, you have correctly summarized my view. Highest GPA, highest test scores, highest extracurriculars. The best students should go to the best colleges because that's what the best colleges are for. So yes, this seems correct. Behind the idea is the belief that meritocracy is noble, fair, and traditionally the American way. It definitely should be. Yes. But in the country where opportunities can be purchased and or inherit, meritocracy is at best unobtainable and worse a tool. See, no, you're not arguing against meritocracy. You're arguing against the fact that people get in not on merit. You're not actually arguing against meritocracy itself. You're saying opportunities can be purchased and or inherited. Implicitly, those people do not have merit or not as much merit. That isn't an argument against meritocracy. That's an argument that what we are doing is not meritocracy. That isn't an argument that meritocracy isn't the goal. That is an argument that meritocracy is bankrupt. That's an argument that we're not doing the meritocracy. Let's do the meritocracy. Let's do that. You think legacy admissions are some bullshit? You think inherited my daddy, though, is some bullshit? I'm all with you. Let's do meritocracy. Do you actually have an argument against meritocracy, or only that we're not really doing meritocracy? Because if you want to argue that meritocracy has been corrupted by other things, I'm all about that. Sadly, there's never been meritocracy in college admissions or our great country as a whole. Well, then let's do that. Let's actually do it. Let's do meritocracy. Take the question of the SAT, ACT. Students who excel do not generally do so based on sheer effort and talent alone. Black and brown students are more likely to attend underperforming schools than leave students unprepared for college entrance exams. Yeah, the way to fix that, though, isn't to skew the scores. The way to fix that is to figure out why they're attending these underperforming schools. And the answer doesn't seem to be rooted in the public education system. Because, cities like DC and New York spend something like $30,000 per student without much to show for it necessarily. So I'm not sure it's necessarily a money problem. But, let's figure out why the schools are underperforming and help them perform better. Rather than trying to skew the scores on the back end, let's fix it on the front. Let's actually fix the underlying problem. Why are they underperforming? What is the problem? What works? What doesn't work? Incidentally, the Department of Education does some statistical research on this for exactly this reason, right? They look at various programs nationwide and they see what programs work and what don't, so that they have an idea of what can work to bring things up. So let's just stop throwing money at the problem and let's actually figure out what the problem is. These students also typically have less access to academic guidance, early college programs, pricey tutors, summer-long study programs, or college admission consultants, opportunities that can commonly be purchased. Well, consumerism is still a thing, and people can buy access to those things, but those things can also be obtained, from libraries. You can get study guides for the SAT and ACT at your local library, and you can study for it that way. And so there are ways to do this, and there are definitely people who will help you out. And so, some people can get access to those by buying it, but, if they are able to get in because of their merit, they've got merit. Even admissions based on extracurricular are innately biased. First generation and low income Americans are often compelled to work and take care of younger siblings. Well, those are factors that could be brought into the admissions thing. You got a job, you help to raise your siblings. Those are things that seem worthy of consideration. They show a strong work ethic. That's good. They show responsibility. That's good. So counting that as an extracurricular effectively works for me. That shows potentially good character traits. So if your argument is we should look at people when they are working and how they're taking care of family members as traits to show that they have character, then cool. I'm all about that too. This makes it really hard for students, disproportionately Black and brown, to participate in school sports and clubs and community volunteering opportunities. Okay, cool. Maybe they're doing other things that should be considered on equal pairing, like helping to get a job, holding down a job, showing that they have work ethic, helping their families. Those all sound good, and also, incidentally, not based on race. My mother basically raised her siblings. My mother's parents died very, very young. And my mother basically raised her siblings. So that factor should be used as a method of saying, okay, that she has a strong ethic and she's a good person. It's why not use that? Okay, this person went to sports camp, this person raised their family. Those seem like good things that we should look at. So if your argument is, let's look at those factors, I'm all about it. Furthermore, they attend schools that are less likely to offer the sports camp or exposure to rowing, equestrianism, and fencing that might give them a leg up. Okay. I don't know really what to tell you at this point. They can show those strengths through what is being offered. What did you have the opportunity to do? Did you take advantage of those opportunities? Did you take advantage of what was available to you? Show us the strength of your character. Show us that you took advantage of what was available. Show us that you persevered despite problems. Show us your merit. Now that colleges are barred from considering race, what other criteria will gain more weight? It won't be academics, which is also already sufficiently considered. Will it be economic interests such as legacy? I hope not. Donor status? I hope not. And the ability of students' families to pay full freight of the cost of colleges? Well, with student loans being such a burden on people's ability to pay for colleges and not burden them is something that should be considered. as we've talked about student loan reform. So, people's inability to pay for colleges, we should be concerned at least a bit about them taking out loans that they may not necessarily be able to pay back. So, the fact that I could pay for my kids' college is helping to defray that problem. People who have to take out loans, need to get jobs that will help to pay the costs. Will college essays for which wealthy students often get help constructing compelling narratives for high-priced admissions consultants. ChatGPT, baby, can help you these days. Whatever the criteria, it's likely they'll be only further reduce the number of historically excluded students. Then there's the question of college advising. Many Black and brown students are also the first in their family to go to college, and their parents have limited experience in highly complicated process of TEP prep, application, and financial aid. So use first in family status as a method of if that is the issue, then use first in family status. You're the first in your family to go to college. Use that as a factor. If you want students who are the first in their family to go to college, just give them as a factor. It's not a race-based criteria. It's the first in your family. You're the first one to do it. So we're going to give you a bonus because you've excelled beyond, the advantages that were given to you. So we're going to give you a leg up that's not based on race. Why are you using race? This is the ultimate thing that is really unspecified. Why are you using race as a proxy for these things? That's the thing, right? If you want to not have legacy admissions, if you want to have people of diverse backgrounds, if you want to use people of diverse ideas, if you want to use people of diverse experiences, why not just actually go ask those questions? Why are you using race as a proxy for these things? That's the bizarre thing. Don't use race as a proxy. Just go ask the question. Are you first in your family? Do you have extracurricular experience, whether that's having a job, helping your family raise your siblings, going to equestrian camp? Do you have diverse ideas? What is your background? Why are you using race as a proxy? Why not just do these things if you think they're important? Why assume that races have these criteria rather than just asking the question? Yet, an average on public school, the student ratio counter is only 1 per 400, and it's even lower in high needs districts. Okay. In such district, counselors are almost more likely to be focused on addressing social and emotional needs of students, leaving little time for in-depth college counseling. Okay. I mean, all right, but there are services that are available for those people. And if not, maybe we should get those services for those people. Why use race as a proxy? With public school counselors often overloaded, students must either be lucky enough to find a nonprofit or go it alone. There are lots of nonprofits out there, to be sure. A true merit-based process could rationally be defended in a nation where opportunities and resources are randomly distributed as talent and drive. But it's not and never been the American experience. Well, that's true that economic differences have always been true, but that's in the nature of some things. And, we do live in a capitalist world, and capitalism is at least somewhat an expression of merit because people get money, at least in a capitalist system, because they're providing something of value. So there's all that. Ours is a nation where money, power, and legacy buy opportunities and privilege. They buy opportunity in some sense, but you still have to be taking advantage of that opportunity. And if you suck as a person, which is often very true of rich people, then you shouldn't succeed. Sometimes they don't succeed very well. The fundamental way to challenge the status quo is to increase access to quality education. No, the fundamental way to change the status quo is to look at the factors you say are important. Race is not a factor that's important. Why not just actually look at the factors? Outlawing affirmative action in college admissions is wrong from a morals and value perspective and economically disastrous. Yeah, I couldn't disagree more on this. That is, I think racism is wrong on a moral level. That's what I think is wrong. You know what I think is wrong? I think that giving someone an advantage based on race is wrong because it's discrimination on the basis of race, and racism is wrong. That's what I think. But apparently this guy thinks racism is good. So we just fundamentally disagree, I guess. It will no doubt raise barriers to degree attainment for students who are already facing most of challenging life's hurdles. If your issue, once again, if your issue is there are students out there with a lot of hurdles, why not just ask the question, do you have a lot of hurdles? And if so, compensate for that. Also, how did you overcome the hurdles? How did you show your character through the hurdles? What did you do to persevere with the hurdles? That might be good questions to ask rather than what your skin color, though. Students are our future leaders, and it's up to us to ensure every student has the means to step boldly and confidently into the reality. Instead of going backwards in time to a greater inequality, we need to continue to move forward to reduce and eliminate the college graduation gap, apparently with racism. I challenge all colleges and universities to take significant steps like ending legacy admission practices. Hey, I'm all about that. That sounds fine. Let's do that. That's cool. And focusing more on scholarship and aid dollars to Black and brown students. How about focusing more scholarship and aid dollars to people who are financially disadvantaged? How about that? If the issue is we want to help people who are financially disadvantaged, why not just ask if they're financially disadvantaged and give them money rather than using race? Why are you using race as a proxy for all these things? Why are you using race as a proxy? Why not just simply ask the question, do you not have money? Is that the problem? Are you a worthy student, but you don't have money? We will give you money because you're a worthy student. Why not ask that question? This is an article full of dumb. Thus, that brings us to the end of stupid article time about how meritocracy is a myth, which I'm not sure that they proved their point, except to say that maybe we're not using meritocracy, which is only impetus to say, let's use meritocracy. If your argument is we're not using meritocracy, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. You want to end legacy admissions? I'm cool. Let's do it. Let's end legacy admissions. You want to end admissions because daddy is rich? Okay, cool. You want to do it on merit? Cool. Let's do it. But why are you using race as a proxy for all these things? It's unbelievable. Why are you being racist? Please stop discriminating on the basis of race. And that, for the moment, brings us to the end of discussion of this time.